Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Movie Mount Rushmore podcast. But today, it's not the Nico and AJ show. AJ has very politely, as the gentleman here, stepped aside, and I am joined by none other than BBC Radio 2's OJ Borg. How are we doing, sir?
Yeah, man. So it's Nico and OJ. We've gone down the alphabet.
Nico and OJ, we've gone down the alphabet. That's exactly it. All right, guys, just to give you that bit of familiarity, here's your intro.
I felt like I was in the cinema. That was amazing. THX.
Just need that really now long, loud, lingering.
Turn off your mobile phone.
That's it, man. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Well, you came on my radio show, so it felt like the right thing to do. And also, I don't get to chat movies that much anymore. I really, really don't. Like, I spent years. I mean, everyone loves movies, don't they? I actually used to do a film show years and years ago for MTV, back in the midst of time. So,
No kidding.
the ability, yeah. I used to do a film show. So yeah, the idea that I get to talk films again is pretty amazing.
Well, dude, listen, we've got space for a sort of intermittent guest every now and then during the season. So if you want me to hit you up and see if you're about, I'd love to have you on a semi-regular basis if you're up for it.
You got my number.
I got your number. That's it. But listen, after our little Lord of the Rings exchange, you then raised the challenge to me and said, "What about broadcasting movies? Movies about broadcasting?"
Yeah, because do you know what I thought? Because whenever you've got a guest, and I thought, what fits with what I do, and some of my favorite films. In all honesty, when I was putting my list together, some of my favorite films involve broadcasting for a couple of reasons. One, there are some great broadcasting films around. What you would define as a broadcasting film started off for me. I was thinking, right, it's obviously going to be about TV or maybe radio as well. So, what are the great radio films? What's the great TV films? And then I thought, do you know what? Broadcasting is more than that, because it can take in lots of things. If you take the actual dictionary definition of broadcasting, it's spreading the news. So I have actually, and you may not have done this, Nico, and you did say to me beforehand, you struggled to make a list.
Yes.
I think if you think more tenuously about what is involved in broadcasting, if you think of TV, film, and papers, I think it opens up a whole new world. So yeah, my top 5, because we're going for top 5s.
Yes,
I'm very excited about, and they are 5 of my favorite films of all time, not just favorite broadcasting.
Oh, damn! That's that. I'm genuinely curious to hear them, because listen, I would say that the movies I've assembled, they're damn good movies. I'm hoping there's one in there that I'm gonna surprise you with, because it's kind of a little hidden gem that not a lot of people have seen.
I'm excited
and
about
it's
that.
fantastic. But as a guest, why don't you get the ball rolling with your number 5?
Can I? Do you know? I was going to mention some of the films that didn't make the cut. I'll do that.
Sure. No. Go ahead, please. Absolutely.
No, because I don't really want to, because there were some films in there that didn't make the cut. For instance, I haven't put Alan Partridge in there. And the reason for that is obviously Alan Partridge is the most famous radio presenter of all time. The problem is, as a radio presenter myself, you spend your entire life trying not to sound like Alan Partridge and to try and not make it onto Accidental Partridge, which is, like whenever you do, and I have done multiple times in the past. The problem is, it's so real the way Alan Partridge is. And I remember watching the film Alpha Papa, and I was working at a commercial radio station. And when the film gets, when he gets rebranded in it, that was very close to the branding line of the commercial radio station I was working for at the time. I was like, this is literally reality. This is far too close. This is not a film. This is a documentary. So for me, that hasn't made it in to my list. The same, I was thinking more broadcasting films. Natural Born Killers hasn't gone in there. One of the ones that got very, very close was the Muppets. Now, I am a massive Muppets fan. In fact, I made a documentary about the Muppets, about, why they have entertained us for 40 years. They are our favorite people, the songs, the rest of it, the full package.
Plug away. Where can people see this documentary, OJ?
Oh, it's not. It was a radio one. It doesn't exist anymore. It was only on the BBC for a month. I'm trying to get it back out, which it does, because we actually got the scoop of the fact they'd found, the missing song from Christmas Carol. We actually got the scoop because I was interviewing Brian Henson at the time. And I'm trying to get it back out at Christmas and to recut it again. So when it appears, I will tell you, Nico. But let me go into number 5. Rather than the ones I haven't put in, let me go in with the film that I have. And at number 5, it was a film. And when it comes to broadcasting for a lot of the time is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That means that anything spoofing it is immediately genius if it understands the medium. And Anchorman understood the medium. That 70s, arrogant, full of themselves, yet slightly sad broadcasting team was so brilliantly done. And it came out at a time for me where I was living with friends still. We quoted it mercilessly. I still quote it to this day. I mean, not a week goes by that I don't say the line, and I'm going to misquote it. 70% of the time it works every time. The fact that he named his testicles, I think, as a broadcasting film, it got it so right. And when they're trying to put Ron off when he's doing the news, that is the stuff you do. You do it to your friends. I mean, maybe not. Obviously, I don't do it now because I'm a full professional, but maybe in other places you've tried to put your friends off. So as a film, it just nailed the broadcasting. And when it comes to the comedy, and the reason I think Will Ferrell did it so brilliantly is he was happy to absolutely rip it apart, which he wasn't with some of the other films. Like when he did Talladega Nights, he was a bit more respectful, I think, of what the movie was about. When it came to Anchorman, he absolutely destroyed everyone, and it was brilliant and it was funny. And Ron was so pathetic and so ridiculous that it just made one of the greatest films of all time. So watchable. You can watch it again and again and again, and it's as good every time.
So here's the thing, OJ, right? We're in our 7th season of Movie Mount Rushmore now, and there's a few little quirks and things that we've become known for good and bad.
Don't tell me you hate Anchorman, otherwise it's been lovely being with you.
Don't hate Anchorman. AJ and I, and I'm only saying this because if I come somehow now played to the piper and said, "Oh yeah, love it," oh my god, we'd get such backlash from that. I can't tell you. Will Ferrell is not our guy, bro.
Wow. Okay. Now I have met Will Ferrell, and he was lovely, and he told me about his wife's massive head. Why do you not dig on Will Ferrell?
That is a really good question. I find him hyper annoying. Not as I'm talking about his performances. I've obviously never met him. I cannot speak to his character. I think he's a very, very, very downgraded version of Jim Carrey, in my opinion. I think I'd like to see Will Ferrell grind his teeth on a dramatic role. There have been moments where he's actually made me chuckle.
Stranger Than Fiction. He was great in Stranger Than Fiction.
See, there you go. That's one of the ones I haven't seen. But every time I've seen a Will Ferrell movie, it's just made me eye roll. Like, what's that one he did with Mark Wahlberg? Is it Daddy's Home?
Daddy's Home I've not watched. Now some of them I think a little bit like Jim Carrey in a way.
Yeah.
A little bit like Jim Carrey. There is quite a lot of schlock. And what's the Rodriguez phrase, isn't it? It's one for me, one for the studios, isn't it? And I do feel a bit like that with Will Ferrell. But I think if you get him in his classic roles where he really broke out, he changed comedy. I do believe that he took, in the same way that Jim Carrey did before with the physicality, I think that Will Ferrell, when he came out, because he was Saturday Night Live as well, some of those characters that he brought out of Saturday Night Live, I just thought was so brilliant. And I think the way he did it in Anchorman was great. The way he was in Old School, which was the first film that I think I remember seeing him in, they're just great performances. And I think possibly the reason that he maybe didn't do enough different roles, so it became a repeating, like it became less and less each time. It was just, oh my god, it's Will Ferrell doing Will Ferrell. Oh my god, it's Will Ferrell doing Will Ferrell. Yeah. But that early role, when he was Ron Burgundy, he nailed that. That was his character to play.
It's an iconic character. Listen, love or not love, there's no doubt that character has left its mark on cinema history. That's objectively, I have to sing his praise. But it just does go to show that of all the genres of film, comedy really is the most subjective. Like, what will make one person laugh will crickets for another person. It's fascinating.
Did you not like the whole film because of Will Ferrell, or just didn't dig the film when it came to Anchorman? Because the second one sucked.
It's not the film that bothered me. There's a lot of people. I'm a big Steve Carell fan. One of the things that annoyed me about Anchorman is I don't think it played to Steve Carell's strengths. I wanted to see more of him.
Yes, now you see, I think, you're right, subjective when it comes to comedy, because I think they fitted so well together as a team. And I think Steve Carell, when he comes in and he shouts, I ate a lamp and I killed a man with a trident, I think he played that dim-witted person so well that it just, the weatherman is always, I don't want to say this because I know Owen and he was a weatherman, but like the weatherman was always that sort of role. And I think Steve Carell was brilliant in it. I think he was really, really brilliant in it. I really do. I thought they were all great in it, and I think they played their roles. But it's interesting that you thought that they just didn't get the best out of the characters.
Yeah.
Because they were their breakout roles for a lot of them.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing, man. This is the joy of movies and of movie discussion. It's like two people who can both be joined at the hip with their love of Lord of the Rings, bring comedy to the table. Whey. Opposite
Yeah.
ends of the spectrum. All right, my number 5. It's may not come across as an obvious broadcasting movie, but it's the opening 5-6 minutes, which are all about broadcasting, which set up the dynamic of the rest of the movie, and it says a lot about the danger of language and about the danger of how people interpret language. I'm going to go with The Fisher King.
Now you see, The Fisher King. The Fisher King is one of those films that I remember watching, and I watched it, and I've not watched it as an adult. I watched it as a kid. My mum and my stepdad had it on, and I remember watching it and the story about how it goes through it, because the whole film is based around broadcasting. I'd say, yeah, the first 5 or 6 minutes, but the whole film is based on a man's, tumble from the heights to the lows, which is,
Literally.
and the fact that the story gets pulled together and it is brilliant. I have not been able to watch it again for a few reasons. One, it's just a bit too sad for me. I
It's
really struggle
very
with that
sad.
film.
Yeah.
And the brutality of it and the story with that. I mean, here's a question for you outside of films. At what point can you do spoilers?
That's a really good question. So just before
How many years?
just before we jumped on this recording, AJ and I were reviewing, because one of the things we do on the channel is we do something called classic movie reviews. So we look at movies that are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that week.
Mhm.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, if you can believe it, is 10 years old this week already. Crazy how that time's gone. And I was about to talk about that thing that happens with Gwen Stacy at the end of it. And AJ said to me very clearly, no need for spoilers.
Spoiler.
I'm like, man, it's been 10 years.
I
Like,
know, but you get to the point where you think, can I do the spoiler of the relationship maybe between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader? I mean, are we at the point where you can't do that? Surely everyone knows that by now. But when it comes to the Fisher King, there is quite an important moment in it. I guess, because obviously it's about a radio DJ. I've known quite a few radio DJs who are that sort of bully. That sort of, winding their listener up and pushing them to do things, and then they do something. I mean, obviously that's never happened that far, but yeah, I mean, that is a great shout. But what a film. And I haven't been able to watch it as an adult. So whatever that is. Am I an adult now? Who knows? So 30 odd years, I've not been able to watch it just because it's still so brutal.
And it really does make you question, like, why are radio presenters, news anchors, members of the media in general, they're given so much. I mean, you can probably speak more to this than I can. Well, you definitely can. There's so much leeway that's granted, especially what I found when you look at across the Atlantic and you look at the right wing media there. Like, some of the nonsense that people like on the Fox News network are allowed to get away with, and you're looking, going, you're literally telling me 2 + 2 = potato here, and it's being greenlit.
Yeah, I guess there's a massive difference between what you can get away with in America and what we can do here. I mean, we do have very, very tight broadcasting laws. Like, you cannot get away with it, especially not within the BBC. We have quite tight rigors. I would guess, depending on the show and depending if you're double siding it, America's way different to here. It is just totally different. It's totally different.
And so in relation to that, what goes on in The Fisher King, it's one of those things where when you place it in America, you think, ugh, in a dark parallel world, not that far
Oh,
removed from ours, like really
yeah.
not that far removed. Yeah,
You can imagine it. I mean, as all the great films you can imagine it happening in today. You could absolutely imagine it happening today. You could.
absolutely.
Right, let me hit with number 4. And the
Please.
reason I want to get into number 4 is because you mentioned that Will Ferrell was like a poor man's Jim Carrey. Number 4 for me
Sorry.
involves Jim Carrey. It involves
Hey.
Jim Carrey. And I've always thought that comedians playing anything straight always makes a film instantly more interesting.
Yes.
And Jim Carrey, physical comedian, Ace Ventura, what a brilliant film. The way he molded his body, the way he did the things that he did, the way he came out of that rhino's ass. Like, those were amazing moments. Like when you watch him come out of the bum.
Yeah,
I mean, that
he's
is,
got that skin around his
and his
chest.
wounds coming out. It's so brilliant, isn't it?
Brilliant.
But the thing about Jim Carrey is that he's always been that, with the great comedians, there's always a heart of darkness. There always is. There's always some inner torment. And I think the way he played the Truman Show was one of the great roles.
Great shout.
And you look at that show, and I watch it again, and it's sort of one of those films I watch every 6 months. It's still as brilliant today as it was the first time. The way that he's controlled by a broadcasting empire, the way that he breaks out of it, the way that he played that role, and you look at the people who were up for it as well, because Robert Williams was one of the names they were talking about. The fact that he did manage to change it to himself. No one could have played that role like him, who could have brought that to it. And then when he breaks out, that emotion, that rush, I mean, spoiler alert, he does end up going outside of the world at the end. It's such a great moment. And that final line is one of the triumphant moments. And I think what makes the film even better, however old it is now, 20 odd years old, you can imagine with every passing year that something like that, a baby will be conceived on TV and the TV show will be around its life. You know, it's Big Brother times 1,000. And it's just
100%.
still, it's still so good. You live every moment with him. And those great films like that. I mean, I just, I live for The Truman Show.
Dude, I'm actually angry I didn't think of it, because of course it's a broadcasting movie. And in the year 2024, where we have become almost monomaniacally obsessed with reality TV and celebrity gossip and keeping track of every minutiae detail of what's going on in someone famous's life, this
Look at
is
Instagram.
exactly.
Look at Instagram, the ability to share, and it's great, and radio's about sharing emotions and sharing stories, but you selectively share it, and and there's sometimes creative license to how you share it. The Truman Show was about somebody's life, and just the brilliance of how that people were putting the adverts, and it got broadcasting so brilliantly.
It
And I
really,
think all of the performances were so good and so emotional,
yeah.
and the bars dedicated to watching Truman were brilliant.
What a great shout. I'm really bloody angry I didn't think of that, because that's a favorite here on the Movie Mount Rushmore podcast. It really is. So I'm quite annoyed, but yeah, great shout. I'm gonna go number 4. I'm gonna go with The Warriors. Now that is a movie which some people may think, how's that about broadcasting?
Is that the Kiwi film?
No, 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 no. The Warriors is the old 70s movie about, you must have seen it.
No, I haven't. I don't think I have.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it 70s or 80s? I must check this now. Sorry, bear with me. The Warriors, 1979, yeah. So, it is such a great slice of self-aware B-movie, gritty action. Story is this: we are in a kind of, not as graphic, but a kind of escape from New York. New York. New York is not the city as we know it today. It's overrun by gangs. The gangs represent different sects of the city. So Greenwich, Long Island, Manhattan, yada, 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 right? And there's
Sounds like gangs in New York to me.
dude, it's literally, it's very similar to that. So all of these gangs gather right at the beginning of the movie, and the kind of head honcho tries to unite everyone. He gets assassinated, and a group from Coney Island called the Warriors get framed for it. And they need to make it from Manhattan back to Coney Island in one night, as they're being hunted by every single gang in the city. Now, where does broadcasting come into this? Because menacingly, throughout, all you see to keep the narrative flow of the movie going is this African American girl on radio, very much the way you do your announcing, actually, going, and up next on radio, we have got an update on the Warriors' exact location. Gangs in
I
the
love
area,
that.
be sure you track them down. And so the radio broadcasting is literally dictating the narrative flow of the movie, and it's menacing.
Clever.
Because each and every sector of New York, each and every district of New York that they get to, the closer they get to home, the further away it seems, because there's that many more people after them. And the radio host is kind of directing people towards them. So there's that overarching threat that's ever present. It's amazing.
I'm going to watch that. Do you know who's used that recently as a storytelling device? It was the Continental, which was the 3-part show that was
Yeah,
on
the John
Amazon,
Wick movie,
which
the
came out of
John
the
Wick
John Wick
series. Yeah,
universe. And I think it's in the 2nd or 3rd episode. They're trying to find whoever whoever they're trying to find is. I can't remember who. And there's a radio presenter saying, oh, you cats out there want to find this person,
It's
sexy
exactly
lady who's
like
on the
that.
radio.
It's
they've
exactly
obviously used
like
it in
that.
That is a great shout. That is a really good shout. I'm going to check that out, The Warriors. Okay, number 3 for me, it was the film I was watching just before we started to record this, only because I've not watched it in about 10 years. But when you work in radio, at some point, you will want to be a certain radio presenter. We all do. You all come into radio thinking, I want to be this person.
Yeah.
Okay, he's possibly the most famous radio presenter ever to have made it into a film show. He's got one phrase that he shouts at the start of every single radio show he does. Can you guess what that phrase is?
Tell me.
No, come on, have a guess. Have a guess. What is the one thing? Come on,
Good
go on.
morning,
That's
Vietnam.
the one. Exactly that. Good morning, Vietnam. And it is, when you watch Robin Williams,
That was
in
my
that
number
film,
2,
all
by
of us
the
at
way.
some. Pardon? Was that your number 2?
My number 2, yeah.
It is. We all wanted to be Adrian Cronauer. We wanted to be that person who came on and just riffed and was funny and did voices. And, you're in the jungle, man, did impressions of Nixon and all this sort of stuff. Because he was the archetypal. That's what we wanted to be. We didn't want to just, go, that was Beyonce and now here's a competition, text us, whatever. We wanted to be funny. We wanted to engage people. We wanted to play the songs we wanted. And I wanted to be as well. I wanted to be slightly anarchic. I wanted to, stick 2 fingers up at authority figures. I still do to an extent. And just if you look at how that radio station is put together, it's so reminiscent of commercial radio. It really, really is. And I mean that in a nice way, that a lot of people who are slightly outside of the format, let's get rid of them. We don't really like those people. And there'll always be a boss somewhere who thinks they're funnier than you. So as a film, as a broadcasting film, it is so good. And having just rewatched it, you watch how he comes in, because there's a phrase in broadcasting, in radio, which is everything is content. And for Adrian Cronauer, the war, everything around the war is his content. And I think the way he goes from someone who's very, whatever, I just do jokes, to at the end having some pathos, it's such a great film.
It's one of his most understated performances, because people always pull for, your Aladdins, your Mrs. Doubtfires, maybe even your Fisher Kings, but
Goodwill Hunting.
Goodwill Hunting is usually his top one, of course. But this is such an underappreciated role. And I think it's one of his best. And you've said it perfectly. The way the arc he goes through as a character, the relationship he develops with Trang Pak, his Vietnamese friend, the way he realizes that he's not just there to tell jokes, he's there also to help people get through the day. Like, I always
realize that. He has to realize that, though.
I love it when he gets to that scene with all the soldiers in the back of the pickup truck. And
where are you from? Oh, Mali.
Yeah.
And he does. And what that is Robin Williams being Robin Williams as a stand-up.
Yeah.
And it was, they put him into this role where he could be who he was, and it got to the heart of him. And I thought, I like, having rewatched it again, it's amazing how much I remembered, some of the lyrics, some of the little quotes. And as I say, I've not watched it for 20 years, probably 15 maybe.
Too early, too late. That's my favorite one, when he's provoking people. Good morning. Too early? Was that too loud? Too late?
And I'm telling you, there's not one radio presenter at some point hasn't gone up to a microphone and gone, good morning, Vietnam. I swear, everyone does it at some point.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. It's literally like getting to the front of the ship and going, I'm the king of the world, right?
Exactly. It's that. It is that. It's one of those things you have to do.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, we're great minds think alike there. So, okay, tell you what, I'll bump that to my number 3 so we can keep the ball rolling this way. So what's your number 2?
Well, do you know, I did Celebrity Mastermind recently. It was my subject on that, not just the first film, but the second film as well. There is a God, Heather be thy name. It's Wayne's World.
Oh God, how did I forget Wayne's World?
And it's wonderfully, it is about broadcasting, but about local channel broadcasting, and how that film came about, how they made the first one, how absolutely perfect it was, considering the production process. And I got quite deep on it when I was researching it for Mastermind. It was a mess. They were all over the place. There was arguments. The cut at the end was different to what the director wanted. Yeah. She hated everyone. Mike Myers was Mike Myers on it. But you look at the film in its whole, and I watched that every day every night for an entire summer, like one whole summer holiday. I watched it every single night, and I can still quote it to this day. The scene where they do Bohemian Rhapsody is iconic.
Yeah,
the scene where they go in to the club is iconic. All the stuff with Stacey, a gun rag. What am I going to do with a gun rag? But the whole point of the film is they end up getting their show bought by Benjamin. So it's a film about broadcasting, just really crap, low-level broadcasting, of which I know a little bit about myself. Yeah. And the other thing I loved it as well was I grew up in Leicester, and Leicester had its own TV channel in the mid-90s, this really terrible channel called Cable 7. And it was a lot like that. It really, really was a lot like that, where there was one guy who had a TV show. He went around all the working men's clubs of Leicester, And it was, for me as a film, there is nothing more perfect. The breaking of the fourth wall,
Oh,
the
it's
opening
so
of the
good.
door, Stan Makita's donuts, hang on a second, only I talk to it's just the way they do it is perfect.
Deadpool ain't got nothing on Wayne's World when it comes to breaking the fourth wall. I'm sorry. Okay, confession time. I saw Wayne's World for the first time last year.
No way.
Wait, and I
What did you think?
loved it. Loved
Way,
it. Loved it. Loved it. I went into it thinking, ugh, I'm worried. Is it going to be a bit slapstick 80s? How has this aged? And I was just zoned in. I'm like, this is genius. It's aged like fine wine, this film. It's for someone who's got, sensibilities of 80s and 90s, but watching it through the prism of 2020, it's still great.
Yeah, man. What did you think of this? Did you watch the second film?
Nope, haven't got around to that yet.
I wouldn't say the follow-up was better, but what I would say is the way that they managed to keep that success going is very, very good. And they see, because what I can see, if you look at Wayne's World, the first one, it inspired so many filmmakers. That breaking of the fourth wall, the way they did it, the mocking but the love of the subject matter, it changed comedy for a lot of people. And for me, stuff I've written over the years, bits I do on the radio, all harks back to that way they made it. And I still, it's one of my favorite films. I didn't put it at number one just because I think there's one film that is the greatest broadcasting film of all time, which I'm now sort of regretting putting there, but I'm going to go with it. So yeah, I love it.
So my number two is actually it's very adjacent to the way you've described Wayne's World, that kind of low-level broadcasting, but it's a very recent one. Came out last year, Dumb Money, with
I haven't seen it.
Oh, dude. So it's stellar cast. You've got Nick Offerman, Seth Rogen. The star of it is Paul Dano. And so it's about the GameStop stock crash.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
do you know my brother bought the stock twice? Both times bought high and sold low. Both times, the absolute knob.
Oh, no. So, okay, the reason that this became famous was because of the character that Paul Dano plays. Just this random, little bit spectrum-y YouTuber kind of operating out of his basement who just developed this fascination with the GameStop stock. And he was giving people updates on the daily. And he was helping people to make not hundreds of thousands, but millions off of this share. And it became national news and people started targeting him. Like there were coups put out on him. The story of this one kind of dweeby, nerdy, small town guy who just had a kind of unhealthy obsession with a stock because it was from a video game company. Dude, the way that his broadcasting influenced so many people, both for the good and bad. And he wasn't trying to damage anyone's lives. He was just out there broadcasting and people were just jumping on the bandwagon with him. So there was zero malicious intent behind what he was doing. But it did ruin people's lives. And it also made some people incredibly rich. And it completely ravaged GameStop.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about all of this stuff, because I've got friends who have made money on crypto as well.
Yeah.
And I would always be the person who didn't cash out at the right time. I would be that person every single time. And I hate because it came out of a Reddit. It was was it stonks? I can't remember. There was the whole phraseology, wasn't it? It was stonks and taking it to the moon, all that sort of stuff that came out of Reddit. But the problem at the end was that people who understood this a bit better than I was, as with all this stuff, it's pyramid selling. Some people at the top make a lot of money. Everyone else loses a little bit. It is the only way that sort of stuff works is because, you have managed to rip someone off somewhere and someone will lose money. Like my brother, he bought high and sold low twice. And I remember him telling me, and I was like, you absolute weeb. What are you doing? Like, stop buying stocks.
Yeah.
Just stop doing it.
Literally.
Yeah.
But OJ, honestly,
right, let me hit you with number one then. Here we go.
Check out Dumb Money if you get a chance.
I'm on it. I've just put it on my list. Just put it on my list of stuff to watch. Right then. So my number one isn't a film about TVs. It isn't a film about radios. It is a film about a paper. Now, it is a Spielberg film. And I watched this on a flight. And I remember putting it on a flight. And it was one of those where I didn't want to watch anything else. I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to try this.
I know where
It's
you're
got
going.
Meryl Streep in it.
Yep.
It's got Tom Hanks in it.
Yep.
Yeah. And do you know what? The acting is so on point. Everyone's doing a great job of the acting. Spielberg makes it look like it's set when it's set.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest of these films is, I think, if you know the ending. So, there's no spoiler alert because we know what happens around this. And it's all around Watergate and how the Watergate scandal unfolded around the Nixon presidential, around the Nixon around Nixon and the White House. And it's the Post. And it's about the Washington Post and everything that goes on there and how they ran the story. And it's a little bit like watching The Newsroom for me, which I loved. Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom. I absolutely loved it. With Jeff Daniels, brilliant. Loved it. The greatest story about Jeff Daniels and The Newsroom was he won an Emmy for it. And he flew in, and he was actually recording Dumb and Dumber 2 at the same time. So he had the haircut, and he was like, it's just the weirdness that I'm doing this highbrow Aaron Sorkin thing, and at the same time filming Dumb and Dumber. And it just made me want to be a journalist. And I'm not a journalist. I have done journalism, but I'm no journalist. I've never worked on a paper. But watching it and how they put the stories together, and the running with the tips, and should we publish? Should I publish? Should I not publish? And Meryl Streep's character, when she's the only woman in the room, you go on that journey with her where she becomes this press titan. And it's just that moment, when it's like, this is brilliant. And it's such a film of moments and it's almost set scenes. It's like watching a play. It's like watching 10 different plays that are set in different places. When you get excited about the idea that they've started to run the press, that, the pencil falls off the table because they've run the story. They've gone for it. They're breaking the story, which then led to lots of things and the fall of Nixon and the rest of it. But the way he manages to engineer the tension and the love of making papers, and it's all so much more important. The reason I put it at number one is that it came out around the time that Donald Trump was saying fake news, and there was assault not just on newspapers themselves, but on journalism and the Fourth Estate and that you look at it and it's so prescient and it's so important a bit of filmmaking that 40 years have passed and those issues are still around.
Yep.
And that's what makes it for me number one when it comes to broadcasting films.
And I'll add to that one or two things. I think Spielberg needed a bit of a renaissance. I think he for me, he's the greatest filmmaker that's ever lived. But I do think he needed a little bit of a revival. He hadn't made any bad movies. He just hadn't made anything that was to his high standards for a while, I thought. This just was him reminding the whole, like, hey, don't forget how good I am. And it was just a master at work. It was a thing of beauty. And the way he was shooting those macro shots of the papers being published and the stamping being done, I was like, oh God, you're such a
and the ink going in and then putting the letter sets together. It was a love letter. It was a love letter to journalism through that story.
When he's on fire, man, there's no one who can hold a candle to him. He's just on another level to everyone.
Great Spielberg film.
Oh, Jaws.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah. It's the film that stopped me swimming in the sea. Still does to this point.
I'll make you laugh. It's the film that got me into filming sharks for a living.
Do you film sharks for a living?
Yeah, man.
Oh, mate. So here you go. So I have, because of Jaws, and what's brilliant about Jaws is it's a film. Okay, is it a film about a shark or not?
No, it's a film about a sea monster.
You see, if you listen to certain people, they'll tell you that it's not. It's a film about a relationship and the creeping dread that's coming up to Roy Schneider. Greatest shot in all of cinema. There's 3 great shots in all of cinema, in my eyes, okay? One of them is the trombone, but what precedes it sets it even better because you get the wipe. So he sat on the beach, Roy Schneider sat on the beach, and somebody walks in front of the camera and it zooms in a little bit, and then and it gets closer, and then it has the trombone of the realization of the sharks in the water. And that, for me, one of the greatest films of all time.
Dolly pull focus, it's incredible.
Oh, mate, the trombone, the rack focus, whatever you want to call it. My other 2 greatest shots in all of cinema is Quentin Tarantino in where they're at the in Kill Bill 1, where she goes into the toilet and the camera tracks up above and follows her back in to whatever the name of the cafe is. That for me. And the third one is a recent one from The Joker, where he gets in the fridge.
Oh, it's very
and
good.
the camera goes down. The camera goes down with him, and it was one of those realization moments for me of, oh my God, we're actually watching this person do it rather than being a voyeur in the room. Anyway, I've got off topic. Sharks. I was so scared of sharks, to the point where I'd get in swimming baths and think, what if a bloody shark can breathe chlorine?
100%. I wouldn't get in the deep end of a pool for a while. Then I became fascinated with them.
It's insane. Yeah. And then I was in Australia, and I was very hungover. I was going out to dive off the Great Barrier Reef years and years and years ago. And I'd got on this boat and I was like, oh my God. And we got to where we were and I thought, I'm going to be sick. And I just jumped into the water, this deep ocean where there were sharks around. I was just like sick and sick and sick. I was like, just please, the shark, take me now. And when I knew there were sharks around, and we saw like a little white-tip reef shark,
Mm.
I was like, fine with it. It's for me, sharks is the idea that I can't see them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's when they're dangerous, 100%. But listen, I've been in the water with every single supposedly dangerous shark known to man. Never been so much as nip. The closest encounter I've ever had was I had to get a bit physical with a tiger shark. He was getting a bit bumpy for my liking. So you just yeah, not
You
even
put
a
your hand on
punch. You just very gently guide them away. You kind of just put your hand on the top of their snout and direct them away. And when you do that, they leave you alone.
I love that. I mean, I am fascinated by sharks. I think they are one of the great creatures, and I wouldn't say I do have a bit of is it thalassophobia, which is the fear of open water, the fear of not being able to know what's below you.
Yeah.
I do definitely have a bit of that. But sharks are so fascinating, and I would say when it comes to shark films, Deep Blue Sea is a very,
It's
very
so
good shark
good.
film. It is so good.
I'm an
and
unabashed
also,
defender of that film. It's great.
yeah. And am I right in thinking that the way all the sharks die in Deep Blue Sea is going through Jaws 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Oh my god, I'd never made that
One
connection.
blows up. Yeah, one blows up because they shoot it. One gets electrocuted, and I think I'd have to go back and watch it again. But remember at the time thinking, is this Jaws 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the way all the sharks die?
Because the first one, You Killed My Bird. He throws a lighter at him in the gas kitchen, and in Jaws 1, the shark does get
when he
blown
bites
up
down on the
with
thing
the
and
tank.
Roy Schneider shoots it. Yeah.
Second one, he bites on the pylon, the electric pylon that powers Amity Island.
I mean, I might be wrong here. I might be going at it, but
I want to go and study
I thought,
that.
Yeah, it might need watching again because I had a feeling that all the way that the sharks died in Deep Blue Sea was reminiscent, was a harking back to the Jaws franchise.
It must be. That's a great shout. I'd never joined those dots. What a great take. All right, dude, my number one. I'm gonna make a solid guess here that you've not seen this one, and I'll tell you what. In 7 years of doing this podcast now, this is one of the very, very few movies where I've got a 100% batting average, where if I've said to someone who hasn't seen it, check it out, I haven't had someone come back to me yet and go, whoa, that was good. That was good.
Okay. Who's it star? Let me try and guess it.
Nobody. No famous actors in it.
Okay.
I don't even know who directed it. It's as indie art house as it gets. And it is called Pontypool. Have you seen Pontypool, or are you one of them?
Is that the Welsh version of Deadpool?
He knows about Pontypool in Wales. Good man. So
no, I've no idea. What is it about?
Cool. So Pontypool is but the whole thing, the whole movie is set inside a studio exactly like the one you're in now. The whole thing is set in. It's a one location film set inside a radio broadcasting studio. You get close-up shots of the mouth, wide shots of the mouth, radio presenter like yourself doing his thing. Then out of nowhere, a zombie apocalypse takes place. Wait. But here's where it gets clever. This is not a zombie movie. This is where the movie... Because AJ and I about... what was it? 3-4 years ago, for Halloween, we were doing our top 10 zombie movies. But we were trying to find zombie movies that were kind of like unheard of ones, a bit adjacent. And I stumbled across this movie, and I'm watching it and going, I mean, yeah, there's a zombie thing happening, but there's no zombies in this movie. So here's where the movie's genius. The zombies are all metaphorical, because the way that people become zombies, it's through the radio. It's by the messaging being how it's about the power of words, how the words we speak can toxify, manipulate, deteriorate the mind.
I'm already into this. Okay, as long as they've got a radar diary and they fill it out and give me some figures, then I'm down into this.
Freaking incredible. The whole
I've never even heard of it.
No one has, dude. I came across it by doing a deep dive on Google, and it was like, what is this film? And yeah, it's the metaphor about the zombie metaphor about the power of language and how language can infest our mind. Yeah. I was like, well done, man. How did you take like a zombie movie and make it about a language metaphor?
I love that. I do love that. I'm going to check it out, Pontypool. Going to check it out. What was the number one zombie film when you did it?
Oh, good question. What was my number one zombie film? I think it might have been. I think it might have been. No, it was 28 Days Later.
Yeah. Are they infected or are they zombies? Can zombies run? There you go.
I like that. But yeah, that was the point. I'm like, and that's what I found so cool
Yeah.
about it. I'm like, it's not must eat brain zombie. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
new zombie.
I watched. I remember watching World War Z, and I was a big fan of the book, and I was so disappointed by World War Z. I
You
thought
and
World
AJ
War.
would
Why
not.
am I saying Z? World War Z. Stop being American, OJ.
You and AJ would
and
not get
because
along. He loves that film.
well, okay, then he needs to read the book because the whole point of the book, the whole point of World War Z, the book, I'm going to say Z, to hell with it, is the fact that they don't run. It's about the creeping dread of the unstoppable.
Mm.
The fact that they let them run in the film absolutely ruins the entire premise of the book. The whole point is, though, that you can run 100 steps, turn around and shoot one, and then run another 100 steps, but they will never stop, and they will never stop, and they will keep coming and coming and coming. And that was the point of the book. And the film absolutely changed it in the same way that in the Judge Dredd Stallone film, they took his helmet off. It was just like, well, you've spoiled the sports material. Although, talking of Judge Dredd and Dredd, someone said recently that they got the Dredd film with the Carl Urban one, best use of 3D ever, by the way,
yes,
was the best way they ever got Dredd, and the Stallone film was the best way they ever got the world. They should put the two together.
Yeah, they did.
If you ever read 2018,
they did a good job with Mega City. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very good, and I thought the slow-mo.
The helmet coming off in that Stallone movie, I was like, that is unforgivable.
I flipped it off at that point. Let me give you the films that didn't make my list then. Here's the ones that didn't make my list. Frost Nixon, which is brilliant, didn't make my list. Nightcrawler, which is about the broadcasting industry.
So good. Why didn't I think of that?
Very, very good. Galaxy Quest,
old school,
which was about a TV show. I haven't watched that again. It's not on any streaming platforms. I was even going to pay $2.49 to watch it again. And the other one that I think is great and was very close to making it was The Running Man, because it's, again, a little bit like The Truman Show. Every day that goes past, climbing for dollars and The Running Man becomes more of a reality, especially when you start watching things like Squid Game.
Oh, why did I not think of The Running Man? It's so freaking good. Yeah.
I'll be back only in a rerun.
Only in a rerun. So good. And the villains in that, your dynamos and your fireballs. Yeah. It was such a great film, that, man. Oh, I love it. This has been great, OJ. Thank you for joining me.
I've really enjoyed it.
Really thank you for coming on the pod. So as we wrap up, please plug yourself. Where can people find you? What are you up to?
If you want to listen to me on the radio when I turn you into a zombie using my words, then you can catch me midnight until 3 a.m. 4 nights a week on BBC Radio 2. And in other places, you'll find me doing what I do. But tell AJ he's wrong about World War Z, by the way.
I'll let him know, man. OJ, it's been great. As always, guys, if you have liked this, be on the lookout for another video, a little edit that from the radio show that from OJ's radio show that I was lucky to attend, where we talk about Lord of the Rings. That'll be up on the channel very soon. Be on the lookout for that. But like the video if you're into movies, subscribe if movies are your jam, and we will see you right back here on the Silver Screen Dudes very soon with more top 5s and top 10s. Thank you, OJ.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye for now, guys.